Dear students, good morning to all of you. You are welcome in this class. Today we are going to discuss the basics or fundamentals of primary plant nutrients. So primary plant nutrients includes nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and they are of primary concern to the farmer, available in commercial fertilizers, and their deficiency is widespread. So they are therefore considered as primary plant nutrients, which are actually macronutrients, means nutrients required relatively larger amounts compared to other nutrients are your macronutrients. Primary and secondary. In secondary, you have calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. Among all the 17 essential nutrients, nitrogen is on the top. You already know that nitrogen has most widespread deficiencies in the world, in our country also. And it is very, very necessary. It has very important role in food security, also important role in nutritional security, because nitrogen is very important constituent of proteins. So therefore, it has more value, more value. And also you got pollution. It is also giving us food, but at the same time, we curse nitrogen as it pollutes the environment. Your groundwater can be polluted, your surface water can be polluted, and you already know about eutrophication. Eutrophication is because of nitrogen and phosphorus. They are sent away from the fields or from the lands of soil through water and reaches the oceans, and there they can cause eutrophication. Also, you know about climate changes. You get ammonia or this nitrous oxide in the atmosphere, and you also get some other nitrogenous gases in the atmosphere. Some of them are responsible for greenhouse effect. So from that angle also nitrogen has been studied. So in this context, today we are going to discuss or understand the meaning of primary nutrients, their role and deficiency symptoms, or what happens when these nutrients NPK are in excess also. When you supply them in excess, what happens? When they are deficient, what happens? And also we will see their deficiency symptoms is specific to cereal crops, because in cereal crops, nitrogen or primary nutrients have more value. Their use is highest in cereal crops across the world. And we will also see how to correct the deficiency symptoms, or how to correct the shortage of NPK supply in soils. So all these subjects we are going to discuss now. But before that, I would like to ask the student, what is reactive nitrogen and what is non-reactive nitrogen? Can you make a difference between two, reactive nitrogen and non-reactive nitrogen? Anybody can come forward and give me answer. Difference in reactive and non-reactive nitrogen. Yeah. Anyone? Achappa? Any idea?
So the radioisotopic form of nitrogen, that is N15, is reactive, and the N14 form, which is generally found in the atmosphere, is non-reactive.
Okay. Any other? Any other student? Santika?
Sir, I think except the molecular form of nitrogen, all other forms of nitrogen are reactive.
I think you are partly, or so you are very close to answer, almost close to answer. So it is actually this N2, the gaseous form or molecular form of nitrogen, which is non-reactive. It is there in atmosphere, which is making about 80%. 80% of atmospheric gases is your nitrogen, which is non-reactive. And all other forms, whether it is nitrous oxide, ammonia, or nitrates, ammonium, whatsoever forms you see are reactive forms. So people are happy when you have more non-reactive nitrogen. it is the reactive nitrogen which is important for food security as well as for pollution also. If you do not have fertilizers like ammonium phosphate, diammonium phosphate, urea, all are actually containing reactive nitrogen. If reactions are not there, reactions of nitrogen are not there, you cannot produce nitrate for plant growth, you cannot produce fertilizer. So it has its significance also, besides creating pollution issues. So you can see the cereal. What is a cereal? It is seeds of flowering plants of the grass family, cultivated for the food value of their grains, rice, wheat, maize. Now coming to obligate parasite. A parasitic organism that requires the host organism to complete its life cycle is known as an obligate parasite. That means a parasite will not survive without a host. It needs a host, otherwise it will die. That is obligate means compulsory. Facultative parasite, they may be obligate parasite, but under certain conditions, they can change their behavior, like your saprophyte, and they can complete their life cycle even without the major host or first host. They can complete the life cycle. It's facultative parasite. Similarly, you have other classification of parasites like facultative aerobes, facultative anaerobes, obligate aerobes, and obligate anaerobes. So you can go through the meaning of all these four classes of parasites. That is with respect to oxygen. Now, do you see next slide, fertilizer? Are you able to see the slide, Shubhjit?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is fertilizer? Any natural or manufactured solid or liquid material added to the soil to supply one or more nutrients essential for the proper development and growth of a plant is called a fertilizer. So it can be natural form also, and also manufactured. Manufactured means you artificially produce it by combining certain elements or gases, and then you make this fertilizer. Natural fertilizers are also there. Can you give example of natural fertilizer?
Rock phosphate.
Rock phosphate,
Sodium nitrate.
sodium nitrate. You know about potassium chloride, how it comes? Is it chemically produced or is it received from natural sources? It is from mines. This potassium chloride.
Night.
Yeah, through mining. There is no chemical synthesis. And then cleaning and other operations are, of course, there, but it is not synthetic. It is taken from mines. So it can be in solid form. You know, solid fertilizer, urea, DAP, all are solid fertilizer. Do you know any liquid fertilizer? Liquid material?
Anhydrous ammonia.
Nitrous ammonia.
Anhydrous ammonia. And any other?
Aqua ammonia.
Aqua ammonia, ammonium hydroxide, or urea ammonium nitrate, UAN. Now people are producing urea ammonium nitrate. They are taking ammonium nitrate as well as urea. And making urea ammonium nitrate, it may contain around, I'm not sure, you can check how much nitrogen is there in UAN, urea ammonium nitrate, maybe around 35%, but please check it. And this is very important fertilizer. Now, National Fertilizer Limited, NFL, a government fertilizer manufacturer, is producing urea ammonium nitrate. So it is in liquid form and it can be directly applied to the soil in bands, and which is cheaper also compared to urea, because you add ammonium nitrate in certain proportion in urea ammonium nitrate, and production of ammonium nitrate is cheaper, per kg nitrogen cheaper compared to urea. So they are added to the soil to supply one or more nutrients. Nutrient recovery, proportion of applied nutrient removed by the crop usually expressed as percentage. Fertilization means enrichment of soil by organic or chemical fertilizers is called fertilization. Fertilization increases and maintains land productivity. So fertilization is basically from fertility. You are going to improve the fertility. That is your fertilization. Even if you are using organic manure, it can be called as fertilization. It is not just for chemical fertilizers. Reactive and non-reactive nitrogen, already discussed. Reactive nitrogen includes all forms of nitrogen that are biologically, photochemically, and radiatively active. Compounds of nitrogen that are reactive include nitrous oxide, nitrate, nitrite, ammonium, and ammonia. Non-reactive form of nitrogen is N2 and makes up 80% of the atmosphere. Now, role of nitrogen in plants. Why nitrogen is important for the plant? What it is doing in the plant? Why plants need it? Because to formation of proteins, enzymes, and chlorophyll, it is integral part of all these three molecules, you can say molecules or biochemicals. Rapid growth, nitrogen is needed, increasing seed and food production, improving the quality of leaf and forage crops, particularly in forage crop, it improves the quality of leaves, means it makes them watery and it makes them more succulent. So therefore, it is good for fodder. Often comes from fertilizers and from the air. So there are a number of sources through which nitrogen can come, through fertilizer, through manures, through biological nitrogen fixation, or rainfall or water can also contribute some nitrogen to the soil. Now, dear students, now you see approximate fraction and common range of concentration of nitrogen containing compounds in plants, within the plant. So, for example, proteins. So, protein fraction contains 85% nitrogen in the plant. So, whatever nitrogen is there in the plant parts, 85% is in proteins, 5% in nucleic acid, and less than 5% is soluble organic, and less than 1 is nitrate, and less than 0.1 is ammonium. It is in percentage. Now, concentration in ppm or microgram per gram or milligram per kg, 10,000 to 40,000 ppm, or you can say it is about 1 to 4%. And nucleic acid are 0.1 to 0.3%, and your soluble organic 0.1 to 0.3%, and your nitrate is 10 to 5,000 ppm, and ammonium is 1 to 40. So you can see that these are the important constituents which contain nitrogen in the plant system, and these are their relative concentration. So overall, you can see concentration of total nitrogen in plant parts. For example, leaves, the range may be 1 to 6% on dry weight basis. That means you have removed the water, you have removed the moisture, and you got the dry part of the plant. In that, optimum is more than 3%. Stems contain 1 to 4%, roots 1 to 3%, fruits 1 to 6%, and seeds contain little higher, 2 to 7%. This is just to give you a rough idea that how much nitrogen is there in the plants. See concentration of nitrogen in leaves of various crops under cultivated conditions. So you can see in grass grains, if you have low nitrogen, that is your less than 1.5%, then it is low. And sufficient nitrogen is 1.8 to 3.6%, and high is more than 3.6%. It is percentage dry mass. Legume grains, low nitrogen means they have less than 3.6%, and 3.8 to 5% is sufficient nitrogen, and more than 5 is your high, very high. So you can easily convert it to protein by multiplying the factors for different crops. Similarly, in sugarcane, less than 1 to 1.5% is low, and 1.5 to 2.7% is sufficient, more than 2.7. So you can have some idea that what proportion, what percentage of nitrogen is sufficient for certain plants. Now, role of nitrogen in cereals. Amino acid, it is part of amino acid, all nitrogenous compounds, nucleic acid, nucleotides, and chlorophyll. It promotes faster growth, responsible for increase in plant height, leaf number, and tiller number, increases leaf size and hence leaf area index, enhances spikelets per panicle or spike, percentage filled spikelets in each panicle, and increases protein content, drives the demand for other macronutrients such as phosphorus and potassium. If you apply just nitrogen in the soil and you do not apply phosphorus and potash, so it will definitely facilitate the uptake of phosphorus and potash also, and almost in the proportionate amounts of nitrogen. P and K will be taken up. And if you do not apply these P and K continuously for several years, then your fertility will be totally depleted for phosphorus and potassium. So that is really not good. So it drives the demand for other macronutrients such as phosphorus and potassium. Nitrogen deficiency, light green to yellow appearance of leaves, especially older leaves, stunted growth, poor food development. You can see this plant, the lower leaves are getting yellow and then they can dry up also. Extreme cases, if you have severe deficiency, then these leaves can dry. And reduced growth, nitrogen deficiency symptoms, reduced growth and growth of plants. Plants can become yellowish in color. Deficiency first comes from lower leaves, and later the whole plant can become yellowish green. Death of leaves may occur, you have just now seen. Death of leaves may occur under severe nitrogen deficiency. Affected leaves are narrow, short, erect, and lemon yellow, yellowish green. In some cases, entire field may appear yellowish. Nitrogen deficiency prominent at critical growth stages. Critical growth stages because at these stages, the demand for nitrogen is high. Therefore, the deficiency symptoms are more prominent. For example, tilling and panicle initiation. The requirement of nitrogen is high. Therefore, you need to supply nitrogen at critical growth stages. Means a stage where if you do not apply nitrogen, there will be maximum loss in the yield. Nitrogen deficiency causes reduction in tilling, leaf size, plant height, and field grains number in rice. So therefore, nitrogen is most important nutrient for tilling in cereals. If you have tilling cereal crops, apply nitrogen, you will get more and more tiller numbers. Whether they will all the tillers will result in the ear-bearing plants or not, but you will get more tillers. Similar with sulfur deficiency, but there is difference that sulfur deficiency appears on younger leaves. And in both the cases, it is uniform yellowing of the leaves. Also, mild nitrogen deficiency is similar to iron deficiency, but the iron deficiency first appear on the emerging leaves. So there is a very difficulty in identification of nitrogen, iron, and sulfur deficiency. So one difference is that nitrogen deficiency is on older leaves initially, and iron and sulfur deficiency is on younger leaves. And in all the three cases, there is chlorosis of the leaf. But in case of iron deficiency, I think veins will remain green. So you can distinguish the deficiency symptoms of sulfur and iron, in which you get deficiencies on younger leaves. So here, nitrogen deficiency you can see in rice, and this is maize. And legumes can also experience nitrogen deficiency. This is pigeon pea plant, and you can see the lower leaves are getting yellow in color. And this is nitrogen deficiency in legume, particularly when you do not use starter dose or your soils are inherently deficient in nitrogen, or your biological nitrogen fixation is not proper, is not efficient. So there may be problem with the BNF, then you can have nitrogen deficiency. So under certain cases, 2% foliar spray of urea is recommended in legumes. Now you see, we always think that excess nitrogen will be responsible for increase in disease, but sometimes excess nitrogen can also suppress the incidence of disease. So here are effect of nitrogen level on disease severity. So you can see two kind of parasites are there. One is obligate parasite, other is facultative parasite. So they behave differently for nitrogen. So for example, you go to obligate parasite, Puccinia graminis, Erysiphe graminis, and so many are there. So you see, if you have low nitrogen supply, then disease incidence will decrease up to Pseudomonas syringae. And if you have high levels of nitrogen in crops or in plants, high supply, then you will find increased disease incidence by obligate parasites. They increase the disease incidence. But these facultative parasites like Xanthomonas, Vesicatoria, and Alternaria solani, Fusarium, Oxysporum, these are under low nitrogen, the disease incidence will increase. The disease incidence will increase. It is reverse. And under high nitrogen condition, the disease will decrease. So here you can see for facultative parasite invasion, if you have high nitrogen levels, then they will decrease the incidence of disease. So one important point is that excess nitrogen will not always result in increased disease incidence. But in some cases, particularly when you have facultative parasite as an infecting agent, then high nitrogen can decrease the disease incidence. Now, what can happen when you have excess nitrogen? Just now you have seen it can lead to increased diseases in some plants, and it can also lead to decreased diseases in some plants. So what else can be seen? Dark green with abundant foliage, excess nitrogen, restricted root system, few blossoms, the flowering can be affected, and a restricted fruit set. You must have seen the case of chickpea. Chickpea is quite common. The symptoms may be quite common when you have nitrogen excess in chickpea. It may result in reduced flowering, and sometimes there may not be any flowering at all. Therefore, nipping is suggested in chickpea. Increased susceptibility to lodging and drought. If you have excess nitrogen, means there will be more vegetative growth, succulent growth, and lodging can happen due to excess nitrogen. Your stem can become weaker, and drought also. Increased disease incidence and insect invasion is normal. In severe excess, the crop may fail to yield grains and delayed mature. So excess nitrogen is also not good, and normally low nitrogen is also not good. So what are the areas or soils where you can find the deficiency of nitrogen? Widespread in Indian soil, I have already shown you data. And major source of nitrogen is organic matter. Post-structure soils are poor in nitrogen due to low organic matter and also due to leaching. Prevalence of submerged environment for a long time. Then you can lose nitrogen by ammonia volatilization or by denitrification. But here, as I told you before, there will not be any leaching. Intensive cropping without using adequate doses. You grow many crops, particularly cereal crops, and continuously harvest biomass from the soil, then you may have nitrogen deficiency. The mining can, or you can say, sorry, depletion. Nitrogen depletion can happen. And legumes may also suffer from nitrogen deficiency. What are the reasons or causes of nitrogen deficiency? Why nitrogen deficiency occurs in crops or soils? So soils are inherently low in organic matter. That is one reason. Inadequate use of mineral fertilizer. You are not adding the quantities what you are removing. Low use efficiency of nitrogenous fertilizers, and you can lose a very significant proportion of fertilizer through different routes. Permanently submerged conditions can reduce indigenous soil nitrogen supply. Heavy rainfall may result in increased nitrogen loss by surface runoff, leaching, and seepage. Now you can see very interesting fact about estimated content and release of nitrogen from various soils. So as you know that soils contain total nitrogen, and all the quantity of total nitrogen is not available in one season. It is released slowly. We also had one numerical or two numericals on these aspects. So this is annual release of nitrogen from the total. So you can see different soils release different quantity of nitrogen in 1 year. So you can see in sands, you have got 1400 kg per hectare total nitrogen, out of which only 28 kg can be made available in one season. Or you can say it is potentially available nitrogen. Yellow sandy loam soils, 2200 is total N, out of which 44 can be made available. Brown sandy loam, 62. Yellow silt loam, 40. So you can see the range of nitrogen will be, you can say 30 to 50, you can say 30, in normal soils, 30 to 50 kg nitrogen can be supplied in a year. Now, what are the corrective measures if your plants are having low supply of nitrogen? What can you do? You can add organic manures, you can do green manuring before transplanting or sowing. Use biofertilizer. These are the sources of nitrogen. Azotobacter, azospilum, rhizobium treatment of legumes should be done. And you can apply nitrogenous fertilizer. Urea is available, and some other fertilizers can be used. And follow strictly the fertilization schedule recommended, particularly suitable for the region. So these are the suggested measures to overcome the nitrogen deficiency. And this is green manuring, you can say, and it can save about 60 kg nitrogen in the next crop. Suppose you have done green manuring of Hacha, Sesbania, or Sanham during summer months in North India, and then you plant rice. So you need 60 kg nitrogen less in rice if you have taken legume, this green manuring as a preceding crop. Now, after nitrogen, we go to phosphorus. But before that, I can ask you, or you can ask me questions. If you have any questions from these, from where I started. So, do you have any question on nitrogen?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, among volatilization, leaching, and denitrification, loss of nitrogen, which is maximum?
It depends upon conditions. So normally ammonia volatilization is higher under aerobic soils and anaerobic soils. Under both conditions, it is ranging from 20 to 30% sometimes. Range is very high for ammonia volatilization. It is almost same range under aerobic conditions as well as flooded conditions. Coming to denitrification, the most significant loss occurs only under anaerobic conditions from denitrification. Maybe again almost in the same range as your volatilization. So you can have 20 to 30% nitrogen can be lost by denitrification. So it is difficult to say that under flooded conditions, is it volatilization or is it denitrification through which we lose more nitrogen? They are almost in the same range, but these two losses dominate under flooded conditions. In case of aerobic soils, the leaching is also very significant means of nutrient loss. Sulfate and nitrate can be lost from there. And other loss is volatilization. So under aerobic conditions, your leaching is more significant loss, and next could be volatilization, and least could be by denitrification. Now you would surprise that why denitrification under aerobic conditions. So in soil also, you got certain sites or microsites where oxygen is not there. So under those circumstances, these nitrate, oxygen of nitrate will be used by microbes, and then denitrification can happen even in aerobic soils. Is it answer to your question, or you had different
Yes.
question?
Clear,
Oh.
sir.
Oh, thank you. Any other question? So we start phosphorus, role of phosphorus in plants. So formation of all oils, it is necessary, sugars, starches, etc. You remember it was for esterification, it was necessary, this phosphorus. Transformation of solar energy into chemical energy, proper plant maturation withstanding stresses, helps in rapid growth, encourage blooming. It is necessary for flowering and root growth. It has major role in blooming and root growth. Phosphorus often comes from fertilizers, bone meal, and rock phosphate. So basically, this rock phosphate is the major source of all kind of phosphorus. Now, role of phosphorus in cereals or plants, essential constituent of ATP, EDP, ADP, nucleotides, nucleic acids, and phospholipids. I think each one of you understand the meaning of ATP, ADP, nucleotides, nucleosides, and so on. Involved in energy storage and transfer and membrane integrity. Promotes tilling, root development, early flowering, and ripening, especially when the temperature is low. Increases store strength and disease resistance in general. P deficiency symptoms, darker green coloration than normal with reddish purple cast, stunted plant growth and delay in plant development. You can see that in case of excess nitrogen, if you supply excess nitrogen, then your leaves can become dark green. And when there is deficiency of phosphorus, then also your leaves will have dark green color. But difference is that here you will get some tinge, some spots or some stripes of reddish purple cast of color. This phosphorus deficiency is accompanied by reddish or purple color on the leaves. In wheat, stunted growth, poor tilling, and delayed maturity. This can be applicable to other cereal crops also. Stunted growth, because nitrogen this phosphorus is also responsible for increased vegetative growth. Phosphorus deficiency symptoms in cereals, stunted growth of rice plants with reduced tilling. So it also reduces tilling like nitrogen. Leaves, particularly older ones, are narrow, short, very erect, and dark green. Stems are thin and plant development is reduced. The numbers of leaves, panicles, and grains per panicle are also reduced. So see that these all yield attributes are getting affected adversely. That means finally your yield will be low. Young leaves appear to be healthy, but older leaves turn brown and eventually they may die. Red and purple colors may develop on leaves, especially when the variety has a tendency to produce anthocyanin pigments. So it is also that you can find some efficient user of phosphorus, but some variety may be more sensitive to the phosphorus deficiency. Delayed maturity means if you are short of phosphorus, your maturity will be delayed. And if you are short of nitrogen, then maturity will be hastened. You will bring early maturity. If you have excess nitrogen, your maturity will be delayed. But here, if you have a low phosphorus, then maturity can be delayed. In severe phosphorus deficiency, plants may not flower at all. Increased number of empty grains in panicle. In severe deficiency, grain formation may not occur. Decreased thousand grain weight and grain quality. Decreased uptake of nitrogen and potassium by rice plants. So these phosphorus, nitrogen, and potassium, they have very positive interaction with each other. So far, their uptake is concerned. Phosphorus deficiency in palm millet, you can see the purple color and somewhat dark green or green color, but you see this development of purple color on the leaves. And see, there is reduction of tilling on the right side. You can see phosphorus. In these fields, phosphorus is deficient. So you can see the tilling is reduced. On the left side, you got sufficient phosphorus. So there is good tilling. So like nitrogen, it is also responsible for tilling in cereal crops. So tilling is reduced even under less pronounced phosphorus deficiency. Stems are thin and spindly, and plant development is retarded. Plants are stunted and small. So you can see effect of phosphorus supply on disease severity, like you have seen in case of nitrogen. Similarly, you will see such differences in phosphorus supply on disease severity. For example, root disease, maybe in any other crop, rhizoctonia may be causal organism in wheat, and resistance increases with P. Means if you have sufficient phosphorus, the resistance to disease will increase. Similarly, powdery mildew in cucumber, reduction in disease severity with phosphorus application. Also, root rot and fava bean, severity of the infection decreases with P supply. Means normally, if you have high or good supply of phosphorus, the disease severity will be reduced. Means it is giving resistance against the diseases. But P application may increase the severity of diseases caused by sclerotina in many garden plants. So some cases, if you may increase the supply of phosphorus, it can increase the susceptibility to disease, particularly by sclerotinia in many garden plants, bremia in lettuce, and phlogismate in wheat. So I'll show you some more examples where sufficient or supply of phosphorus or application of phosphorus can result in increased severity of the disease instead of reduction in the disease. So now see what excess phosphorus can do. Excess phosphorus may cause micronutrient deficiency, especially iron or zinc. I will discuss this at some other point when I will teach you zinc. That time I will discuss this phosphorus and zinc interaction. Now, occurrence of phosphorus deficiency, under what conditions you can notice the phosphorus deficiency. So it is a major growth limiting factor in acid upland soils, where soil phosphorus fixation capacity is high. Soil particularly prone to P deficiency are coarse texture soils containing small amount of organic matter and small P reserves, sandy soils. So these are the conditions where you may experience phosphorus deficiency. Highly weathered clay acid upland soils with high P fixation capacity, like in alpine soils and oxy soils. Calcareous, saline, and sodic soils, you can have P deficiency. Acid sulfate soils, active aluminum and iron result in the formation of insoluble phosphate compounds at low pH. Soils having intensive cropping without using adequate P. So these are the conditions of occurrence of phosphorus deficiency. What are the reasons? Low inherent capacity of soil to supply phosphorus, inadequate use of P fertilizer, no proper supplements of phosphatic fertilizer or organic matters, low efficiency of applied phosphorus used due to high P fixation capacity or losses by soil erosion. So dear students, remember the losses of phosphorus are mainly by erosion. They are not by volatilization, they are not by any other means. The major loss mechanism of phosphorus from the soil is by erosion. And of course, nutrients or phosphorus is taken up by the crop plants. Very little or no leaching is reported in case of phosphorus. Phosphorus immobilization in calcium phosphates due to excessive liming. Crop establishment method also affects the phosphorus availability. P deficiency is more likely in direct seeded rice because here conditions are kept aerobic. And under aerobic conditions, phosphorus supply is less compared to flooded conditions or anaerobic conditions. Imbalanced use of fertilizer, for example, excess use of nitrogen fertilizer with insufficient P application. So these are the causes of phosphorus deficiency. How to correct it? Apply the right quantity of the phosphatic fertilizers, add organic manures, and organic manures, this point can be added for all the nutrients, or whatever nutrient you have, even micronutrient, if you want to supply, use organic manure. Secondary nutrient, because these manures, though they contain in less amounts, less concentration of nutrient, but these organic manures contain all kind of nutrients, particularly farmyard manure, say it is rich in micronutrients, iron and zinc. So add organic manures, green manures before transplanting or sowing of the crop. Use biofertilizers like PSB or mycorrhiza for better phosphorus uptake and utilization. Follow strictly the fertilization schedule recommended for rice or any other crop, particularly suitable for the region. Now, these are the fertilizer sources. You can see different fertilizer sources of phosphorus, single superphosphate, CaS2PO4 twice, and P is 7 to 9%, and soluble, it is 100% soluble. Similarly, triple superphosphate, it is normally not available, not produced, and calcium S2PO4 twice, and you can go through this table and you can find different sources and concentration of phosphorus and their solubility. So what is important in this table that every student should know the chemical formula of the fertilizer. It is very, very important to know it. And if I get time, then I will teach you how phosphatic fertilizers are manufactured. And then what is the content of phosphorus in each phosphatic fertilizer, you should know. And what is the solubility level of each phosphatic fertilizer. This is very, very important for you. Now, role of potassium in plants. Building of proteins, it has very significant role. Photosynthesis, it has role, food quality, and reduction of diseases. Very interesting fact that phosphorus is not directly part of any biomolecule, any chemical compound or biochemical compound in the plant, but it is essential nutrient. So it is necessary for building of proteins, photosynthesis, food quality, and reduction of diseases. Makes plants more resistant to fungal diseases and insect attacks. So it gives resistance against fungal diseases particularly and insect attacks because it makes your straw more coarse or more rough. Good for healthy root development and crop quality. For instance, it improves texture, color, and combustibility of tobacco. Sugar, starch, and oil content, it increases taste, size, and keeping quality of the fruits. So therefore, this potash is important from many perspectives, particularly formation of proteins, and it is involved in photosynthesis and disease and insect pest resistance, and also in food quality or quality of products, and also more importantly, it reduces lodging in cereal crops. Potato, tobacco, and sugarcane use potassium, especially during their early growth stages. So requirement where you have starch or kind of carbohydrates are more. So you need more of potassium. Helps in CO2 assimilation, that is photosynthesis, translocation of proteins. Here it has very important role, and also in transportation of sugars, enzyme activity, cell division, reduction of nitrates, and fat synthesis. Regulation of the osmotic potential of plant cells. Here, it is very, very important. Activates and many enzymes involved in respiration and photosynthesis. And what is a specific role in potassium in cereal crops? Osmoregulation, enzyme activation. It regulates transpiration by stomata and transport of assimilates. Provides strength to plant cell mass, increases leaf area and chlorophyll content, contributes to greater canopy photosynthesis and crop growth, increases spikelet and panicle, or you can say fertility in cereal crops, and 1000 grain weight improves. Also improves the plant's tolerance of adverse climatic conditions, lodging, insect pests, and diseases. Particularly, you may be knowing that it is important in drought tolerance. Potassium has very important role. And if you see under many cases, the foliar spray of potassium chloride is recommended. For example, in sugarcane, in wheat crop, if your crop is facing drought stress, then one can go for 2% foliar spray of potassium chloride, which can help plants to protect themselves against the drought. Potassium deficiency, all the leaves turn yellow initially around margins and die. Irregular food development, and tip burning and marginal firing. So in case of potassium deficiency, the typical symptom is tip burning and marginal firing. And it is altogether necrosis, means death of the margins or tip occurs. And even if you supply potassium, these damaged part will not recover back. Leaf tips are yellow, brown, and later margins may dry up in cereal crops. Symptoms appear first on older leaves, then along the leaf edge, and finally on the leaf base. Upper leaves are short, droopy. Droopy means hanging, and dark green in affected plants. Older leaves change from yellow to brown, and if the deficiency is not corrected or if deficiency persists, then discoloration gradually appears on younger leaves also. Yellow stripes may appear along leaf intervenes and lower leaves may bend downward. Severe K deficiency, what happens in case of severe K deficiency? Rusty brown spots on tips of older leaves and later they spread to whole leaf. Thus it turns brown and eventually dry up. So this is under severe K deficiency. You get rusty brown spots on the tips of older leaves and later is spread to whole leaf, and whole leaf can turn brown and eventually it may dry up. Irregular necrotic spots may also occur on panicles. Stunted plants, smaller leaves, short and thin stems, trailing reduce under very severe deficiency. Increased incidence of lodging due to potassium deficiency, early leaf senescence, leaf wilting, and leaf rolling. This is important symptoms because it has role with the water relations, this potassium. So leaf rolling can also occur, especially when temperature is high and humidity is low. Increased percentage of sterile or unfilled spikelets caused by poor pollen viability. So it is also involved in pollen viability, like you have boron, and retarded carbohydrate translocation. Reduced 1000 grain weight because your translocation of carbohydrate is retarded. Unhealthy root system, many black roots, reduced root length and weight, causing a reduction in the uptake of other nutrients. Increased incidence of diseases like brown leaf spot due to shortage of potassium. Bacterial leaf blight, sheath rot, stem rot, and blast. So if you are short of potassium, you can have these kind of diseases. So see effect of K level on disease severity of several diseases. So see Puccinia graminis, Xanthomonas oryzae, tobacco virus. So when you have low level of potassium, the disease incidence increases, you see. So therefore, it is giving resistance against the diseases. If you have high K, then the disease incidence decreases for all these diseases. But I will show you certain cases where this potassium, sufficient potassium or high K can increase the disease incidence. Now, again, you can see for nitrogen. For example, in wheat, this is the case for nitrogen in wheat, Puccinia graminis. And if you have plus means increased level of nutrient or increased level of disease. Minus means decreased level. Maybe in case of nutrient, sometimes you will find minus, and sometimes in disease also you will find minus. So here minus means decrease, plus means increase. So for example, you see in rice, Rhizoctonia solani. So if you increase the nitrogen, the disease incidence increases. In sugar beet, Sclerotium rolfsi. If you decrease the nitrogen supply, the disease incidence increases. Similarly, for Alternaria solani, Fusarium, if you get less of nitrogen, the disease incidence increases. So if you want to reduce the incidence of these three diseases in sugar beet, tobacco, potato, and tomato, Sclerotium, Alternaria, then you need to add more and more nitrogen. Come to the phosphorus, plus means increase and minus means decrease. So in wheat, for example, Septoria, if you increase nitrogen, the disease incidence increases. But in barley, this G. graminis, if you increase the nitrogen, phosphorus, I'm referring phosphorus now. For Septoria, if you increase the phosphorus, your disease incidence increases. See here. In barley, if barley disease caused by G. graminis, if you increase the phosphorus, disease incidence reduces. See the case of cotton, Fusarium oxysporum wilt. If you increase the phosphorus, the disease incidence increases. Instead of decreasing, the disease incidence is increasing. So it is not always this phosphorus will make your plants resistant to diseases. Sometimes it can increase the diseases also. And see the case of potassium. In wheat, Puccinia triticina, if you increase the K supply, potassium supply, the disease incidence decreases. Similarly, for Puccinia gravinis, the disease incidence will decrease if you increase potassium. But in case of soybean, Phytophthora shoji, you see if you increase the potassium, the disease incidence increases. Instead of decreasing, it has increased. And there are many cases where the increasing potassium can increase the disease incidence. So such information is available. So now you can see K deficiency symptom, lodging can happen. Here you can see plus K, minus K, rolling of leaves can happen. And you see marginal firing and tip burning here in maize. Here also tip burning, you can see, and marginal. So these are the symptoms of K deficiency. Causes are low K supplying capacity of soil, inadequate use of mineral K fertilizer, low recovery of potassic fertilizer, and because of high K fixation capacity of the soil, or leaching losses of K can occur. So overall, you are losing potassium from the soil, which will lead to K deficiency. Complete removal of previous crop straw and residue. If we return previous crop residue, particularly in cereal, then almost 80% of the potassium can be returned back, because only 20% potassium goes to the grain and 80% goes to the straw in cereals. A wide N/K ratio, excess amount of reduced substances in poor drained soils like H2S or iron can cause retarded root growth and hence K uptake. Imbalanced fertilization, especially excess N or N and P. So you see this N, P, K, they have very good interaction. In direct zone rise during early growth stages when the plant population is large, and certain cultivars or varieties may be susceptible. What can we do if you have low supply of potassium or low availability of potassium in soil? Your crop is suffering from potassium deficiency. Follow strictly the fertilization schedule recommended for rice or any other crop. Apply optimum doses of N and P fertilizers. Increase K uptake by improving soil management practices on root health. And addition of straw, previous crop or residue is very, very important. Now you see fertilizers, you can have potassium chloride, 50% K, and you can call it muriate of potash, which has 60% K2. Similarly, you have potassium nitrate. Potassium nitrate is very, very important. If you do make foliar spray of potassium nitrate in cereal crops or in fodder crops, you can increase the seed yield. So foliar spray of potassium nitrate has been found very, very useful in cereal crops. And potassium sulfate you have, and concentration you can remember, it has 50% K2O. And NPK fertilizers are also available in large amounts in the country. You have 19, 19, 19, Sole, Battis, Pare, something like that. There are a number of NPK fertilizers are available where you can get K also. So finally, just 2-3 minutes more. In nitrogen, overall, I'm summarizing the subject. The deficiency of nitrogen is widespread in Indian soils. Part of proteins, enzymes, promotes stilling in cereals. Nitrogen deficiency leads to reduced growth, and symptoms are similar to sulfur deficiency and also with iron deficiency. But here symptoms comes on older leaves. Excess nitrogen results in dark green color. It can invite more insect pests and diseases. Lodging can happen and few blossoms due to excess nitrogen. Low use efficiency is a cause for nitrogen deficiency because whatever fertilizer you apply, say nitrogenous fertilizer, maybe 40 to 50 can be recovered, rest is not utilized. Nitrogen can be supplied through organic manure. There are a number of sources to supply nitrogen. Similarly, phosphorus has its role in sugar formation, starches, transformation of solar energy, helps in rapid growth, encourages the blooming and root. So phosphorus is primarily needed for flowering and root growth. Deficiency leads to dark green color with a purple coloration. Excess phosphate may cause micronutrient deficiency of iron or zinc. SSP should be preferred over DAP because of sulfur supply capacity. You can apply chemical fertilizer, organic fertilizers, or manures. And also now K-solubilizing bacteria are also available. Potassium, it helps in CO2 assimilation, translocation of proteins and enzymes, part of several enzymes, means maybe cofactor, makes plants more resistant to fungal diseases and insect attacks. Crop producing starchy foods such as potatoes, sweet potatoes, and tapioca more important. It shows older leaves, shows the symptoms, marginal firing and tree burning, you can remember. And we can add several sources to supply potassium. So overall, you have seen this lecture. So now I invite your questions. If you have any question, you can ask or open your video so I can close it and take your attendance. 3 people are regularly missing. I don't know who are those great 3 people. Today I will find it out. Who are those people? So, any question, dear students? Subjit, any question you have? Anybody has any question? So, if you are shy, you cannot ask question here. You can send me your question by email. I can answer, but I will share with all the students. But I will not name you. I will not put your name that this question was asked by that. Sometimes we feel ashamed, but we should not feel ashamed. See, nobody knows everything. Nobody knows everything, you know. So there's no harm in asking questions. You can ask questions through email also. Some are asking. I will reply, and I have very good collection of students' questions over years. One file is available. If anybody want, I can share some of such kind of questions. Over years, I made questions from the students. And for example, one year, one student asked me that when we apply urea, first should we apply water, then apply the urea. After irrigation, we should apply urea. Or first we should apply urea, top dressing urea, then apply water to the crop. So what is your answer? So such kind of questions are asked by students, and I have a collection of such questions. So, can anybody answer this question? Should we apply urea before applying irrigation or after irrigation? You have wheat crop, or in wheat crop, you see nitrogen recommendation is you apply 50% at sowing and remaining 50% can be split into 2. One fourth at first irrigation, after first irrigation, and 1/4 after second irrigation. You are going for top dressing. So what is meant by first irrigation? At first irrigation means, is it before irrigation or after irrigation? You think over it?
After irrigation.
After irrigation.
After irrigation. Okay. Any other view? So you just think over it, find out answer, and we can discuss it in the next class.
It should be applied after irrigation, because if we apply the urea first and then apply irrigation, then there might be leaching losses because urea is highly water soluble.
Okay. You please find out answer. Now I am not saying whether you are correct or incorrect. You all find out answer, and then we will discuss in the next. I'm not saying you are wrong, but you try to find out other option also. So you search, you find, and we will discuss in the next class. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. And I think we will meet next week. And if you know, yes.
Sir, ammonium fixation is more in subsoil than in surface soil, sir. Why?
It is mainly because of clay. I will discuss in the next class. Now time is over, and I will surely discuss it. Do not worry. I have some other work, and we'll discuss it later. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye.